Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Exploring Marketing Research, Chapter number 15, Part 1, Questionnaire Design. After studying this part, you should be able to explain the significance of decisions about questionnaire design and wording, define alternatives for wording, open-ended and fixed alternative questions, summarize guidelines for questions that avoid mistakes in questionnaire design. Questionnaire quality and design basic consideration. Each stage in the interdependent marketing research process is important. Yet a marketing research survey is only as good as the question it asks. The importance of question wording is easily overlooked, but questionnaire design is one of the most critical stages in the survey research process. Questionnaire quality and design basic consideration. For a questionnaire to fulfill a researcher's purposes, the question must meet the basic criteria of relevance and accuracy. To achieve these ends, a researcher who is systematically planning a questionnaires design will be required to make several decisions, typically but not necessarily in the following order. What should be asked? How should questions be phrased? In what sequence should the questions be arranged? What questionnaire layout will best serve the research objectives? How should the questionnaire be pre-tested? Does the questionnaire need to be revised? A good questionnaire appears as easy to compose as a good poem, but it is usually the result of long, painstaking work. What should be asked? Certain decisions made during the early stages of the research process will influence the questionnaire design. The preceding chapters stressed good problem definition and clear research question. This leads to specific research hypotheses that in turn clearly indicate what must be measured. What should be asked? Different types of questions may be better at measuring certain things than are others. In addition, communication medium used for data collection, that is telephone interview, personal interview, or self-administered questionnaire, must be determined. This decision is another forward linkage that influences the structure and content of the questionnaire. The specific questions to be asked will be a function of the previous decision. What should be asked? The later stages of the research process will have an important impact on questionnaire wording. The questions that should be asked will, of course, take the form of data analysis into account. When designing the questionnaire, the researcher should consider the types of statistical analysis that will be conducted. What should be asked? So one has to consider two things: questionnaire relevance and questionnaire accuracy. Questionnaire relevancy. A questionnaire is relevant to the extent that all information collected addresses a research question that will help the decision maker address the current marketing problem. Asking a wrong question or an irrelevant question is a common pitfall. If the marketing task is to pinpoint store image problems, questions asking for political opinions may be irrelevant. The researcher should be specific about data needs and have a rationale for each item requesting information. Irrelevant questions are more than a nuisance because they make the survey needlessly long. In a study where two samples of the same group of businesses receive either a one-page or a three-page questionnaire, the response rate was nearly twice as high for the one-page survey. Conversely, many researchers, after conducting surveys, find that they omitted some important questions. So questionnaire relevancy is very important. Therefore, when planning the questionnaire design, researchers must think about possible omissions. Is information on the relevant demographic and psychographic variables being collected? Would certain questions have clarified the answers to other questions? Will the results of the study provide the answer to the marketing manager's problem? Once a researcher decides what should be asked, the criteria of accuracy becomes a primary concern. Accuracy means that the information is reliable and valid. While experienced researchers generally believe that questionnaires should use simple, understandable, unbiased, unambiguous, and non-irritating words, no step-by-step procedure for ensuring accuracy in question writing can be generalized across projects. Questionnaire accuracy. Obtaining accurate answer from respondent depends strongly on the researcher's ability to design a questionnaire that will facilitate recall and motivate respondents to cooperate. Respondents to be more cooperative Respondents tend to be more cooperative when the subject of research interests them. When questions are not lengthy, difficult to answer, or ego-threatening, there is a higher probability of obtaining unbiased answers. How should questions be phrased? There are many ways to phrase questions, and many standard questions formats have been developed in previous research studies. This section presents a classification of question types and provides some helpful guidelines for writing questions. Open-ended response versus fixed alternative questions. Two basic types of questions can be identified based on the amount of freedom respondents have in answering. Thus, they call for responses that are either open-ended or closed from a fixed set of choices. Open-ended response versus fixed alternative questions. Open-ended response questions pose some problem or topic and ask the respondent to answer in their own words. If the question is asked in a personal interview, the interviewer may probe for more information as in the following examples. What names of local banks can you think of offhand? What comes to mind when you look at this advertisement? In what way, if any, could this product be changed or improved? I would like you to tell me anything you think of, no matter how minor it seems. What things do you like most about TCS service? Why do you buy more of your clothing in Centaurus Mall, Islamabad than in other stores? How can our stores better serve your needs? Please tell me anything at all that you remember about the BMW commercial you saw last night. Open-ended response versus fixed alternative questions. Open-ended response questions are free answer questions. They may be contrasted with fixed alternative questions, sometimes called closed questions, which give respondents specific limited alternative responses and ask them to choose the one closest to their own viewpoint. For example, do you use any commercial feed or supplement for livestock or poultry in 2006? Yes, no. Once again, I repeat, did you use any commercial feed for supplement for livestock or poultry in 2006? The answer is yes or no. Is compared with 10 years ago, would you say that the quality of most products made in Japan is higher, about the same, or not as good? Higher, about the same, not as good. Here are two more examples for fixed alternative question. Do you think that the Renewable Energy Partnership Program has affected your business? Yes, for the better. Yes, for the worse. Not especially. In which type of bookstore is it easier for you to shop? A regular bookstore or a bookstore on the internet? Using open-ended response questions. Open-ended response questions are most beneficial when the researcher is conducting exploratory research, especially when the range of response is not known. Such questions can be used to learn which words and phrases people spontaneously give to the free response question. Respondents are free to answer with whatever is uppermost in their minds. Using open-ended response questions. By obtaining free and uninhibited responses, the researcher may find some unanticipated reaction toward the product. Such responses will reflect the flavor of the language that people use in talking about goods or services, and thus may provide a source of new idea for advertising copywriting. Also, open-ended response questions are valuable at the beginning of an interview. They are good for first they are good. They are good first questions because they allow respondents to warm up to the questioning process. Using fixed alternative questions. In contrast, fixed alternative questions require less interviewer skill, take less time, and are easier for the respondent to answer. This is because answers to closed questions are classified into standardized groupings prior to data collection. Standardizing alternative responses to a question provides comparability of answers, which facilitate coding, tabulating, and ultimately interpreting the data. Types of fixed alternative questions. The simple dichotomous alternative question requires the respondent to choose one of the two alternatives. The answer can be a simple yes or no or a choice between this and that. For example, did you make any long distance calls last week? Yes, no. Types of fixed alternative questions. Several types of questions provide the respondent with multiple choice alternatives. The determinate choice question requires the respondent to choose one and the only one response from among the several possible alternatives. For example, please give us some information about your flight. In which section of the aircraft did you sit? First class, business class, coach class? The frequency determination question is a determinate choice question that asks for an answer about general frequency of occurrence. For example, how frequently do you watch the PTV television channel? Every day, 5-6 times a week, 2 to 4 times a week, once a week, less than once a week, never. The checklist question allows respondent to provide multiple answers to a single question. The respondent indicates past experience, preference, and the like merely by checking off items. In many cases, the choices are adjectives that describe a particular object. A typical checklist question might ask the following. Please check which of the following source of information about investment you regularly use, if any. Personal advice of your broker, brokerage newsletter, brokerage research report, investment advisory service, conversation with other investors, web pages, none of these, other. Please specify. Types of fixed alternative question. A major problem in developing dichotomous or multiple choice alternatives is framing of response alternatives. There should be no overlap among categories. Alternatives should be mutually exclusive, meaning only one dimension of an issue should be related to each other. The following listing of income groups illustrate a common error. Under 15,000, 15,000 to $30,000, 30,000 to $55,000, $55,000 to $70,000, over $70,000. How many people with income of 30,000 will be in the second group and how many will be in the third group? Researchers have no way to determine the answer. Grouping alternatives without forethought about analysis is likely to diminish accuracy. Also, few people relish being in the lowest category to negate the potential bias caused by respondents' tendency to avoid an extreme category. Researchers often include a category lower than the lowest expected answers. Phrasing questions for self-administered telephone and personal interview surveys. The means of data collection, telephone interview, personal interview, self-administered questionnaire will influence the question format and question phrasing. In general, questions for mail, internet, and telephone surveys must be less complex than those used in personal interviews. Questionnaires for telephone and personal interviews should be written in a conversational style. Exhibit 15.1 illustrates how a question may be revised for a different medium. Exhibit 15.1 Mail form. How satisfied are you with your community? Number 1, very satisfied. Number 2, quite satisfied. Number 3, somewhat satisfied. Number 4, slightly satisfied. Number 5, neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. Number 6, slightly dissatisfied. 7, somewhat dissatisfied. Quite dissatisfied. 9, very dissatisfied. Revise for telephone. How satisfied are you with your community? Would you say you are very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, neither satisfied, not dissatisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied? Very satisfied is equal to 1, somewhat dissatisfied is 2, neither dissatisfied nor dissatisfied is equal to 3, somewhat dissatisfied is equal to 4, very dissatisfied is equal to 5. When a question is real aloud, remembering the alternative choices can be difficult. Consider the following question from a personal interview. There has been a lot of discussion about the potential health risks to non-smokers from tobacco smoke in public buildings, restaurants, and business offices. How serious a health threat to you personally is the inhaling of this second-hand smoke, often called passive smoking? Is it a very serious health threat, somewhat serious, not too serious, or not serious at all? Number 1, very serious. Number 2, somewhat serious. Number 3, not too serious. Number 4, not serious at all. Number 5, no, no. Thank you. That's all for part 1.